If you log into your retirement account and see $1 million, you are looking at a lie. That number does not belong to you. Depending on the choices you make right now, the IRS might own $200,000, $300,000, or even $400,000 of that balance. This is the fundamental misunderstanding of the 401k. We tend to view our account balance as our wealth, but in reality, a traditional 401k is just a joint checking account with the United States government. And here is the scary part. The government gets to decide their withdrawal percentage later, not now. Today, we are going to solve the single most expensive debate in retirement planning: traditional versus Roth. It is not just a preference, it is a mathematical bet on your future, and most people are betting on the wrong horse because they are looking at the wrong tax rate. I have spent years looking at these tax projections, and I can tell you that the generic advice, like do Roth if you are young, is often dangerously oversimplified. We are going to break this down into a specific decision framework. We will look at the math, which is surprisingly simple, and the psychology, which is where everyone fails. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which lever to pull to keep the government's hands out of your pockets as much as legally possible. This is the highest ROI activity you can do today. Watching this video pays better than your actual job. Let's get into the mechanics of the bet. Let's start with the traditional 401k, often called the pre-tax account. The setup here is seductive. You contribute money, and the IRS agrees not to tax you on that income this year. If you earn $100,000 and put $10,000 into a traditional 401k, the IRS pretends you only earned $90,000. That sounds great. You save money on taxes today. It feels like a discount. But we need to be very clear about what is actually happening. You are not avoiding taxes. You are postponing them. You are taking a loan from the IRS. They are letting you keep their money today so you can invest it, grow it, and then pay them back a portion of the principal plus a portion of all the growth later. The myth is that a tax deduction today is savings. It isn't savings, it's a deferral. Now, look at the Roth 401k. The math here is inverted. You pay your taxes today. If you earn $100,000 and want to put $10,000 into a Roth, you still pay taxes on the full $100,000. You feel the pain immediately. Your paycheck is smaller. But that money goes into the account free and clear. The IRS has been paid off. They have no claim on that capital anymore. More importantly, they have no claim on the growth. If that $10,000 grows to $100,000 over 30 years, that $90,000 of profit is 100% yours. This is the only place in the financial universe where you can make massive capital gains and give the government absolutely nothing. The trade-off is simple: pain today for freedom tomorrow versus comfort today for a bill tomorrow. Here is where the math gets messy. On paper, if your tax rate is the same today as it is in retirement, the traditional and Roth options are mathematically identical. I will prove that in a minute. But humans are not calculators. The problem with the traditional 401k is what I call the refund trap. When you save $2,000 in taxes today by using a traditional account, what do you do with that $2,000? To make the math work, you are supposed to invest that tax savings. But nobody does that. I have never met a single person who calculates their tax deduction and immediately invests that exact amount into a brokerage account. No, we spend it. We buy a slightly nicer car, or we go out to dinner. Because we consume the tax savings today rather than investing them, the traditional 401k often falls behind the Roth in real-world performance, simply because the Roth forces you to save more effectively by paying the tax from your checking account, not your retirement balance. So, the first step in our protocol is to normalize your thinking. you cannot compare a $10,000 traditional balance to a $10,000 Roth balance. They are not the same currency. The Roth dollar is worth more because it is fully post-tax. The traditional dollar is inflated. If you are in a 25% tax bracket, your traditional dollar is really only worth 75 cents. Whenever you look at your net worth, take your pre-tax accounts and mentally multiply them by 0.75 or 0.8. That is your real number. Once you strip away the illusion of the pre-tax balance, the decision stops being about how much money you have and starts being about the rate you pay. And that brings us to the most important equation in this entire video. Wait, before you decide to pay the tax now just to get it over with, hold on. There is a scenario where paying taxes now is actually a financial mistake that could cost you tens of thousands of dollars. It is called the constant rate hypothesis. If your tax rate is 30% today and your tax rate is 30% when you retire, it does not matter which account you choose. The math comes out exactly the same to the penny. It is the commutative property of multiplication. It doesn't matter if you tax the seed or tax the harvest. If the rate is the same, the remaining pile of grain is identical. The only variable that moves the needle is the difference between your rate now and your rate later. That is the entire bet. The most common advice you will hear is this: you will be in a lower tax bracket in retirement because you will have no income. This is the poor retiree myth. It assumes that once you stop working, you stop making money. But hopefully, that isn't true. Hopefully, you have built a massive nest egg. If you have done your job right, your traditional 401k distributions, your Social Security, and your investments will replace your salary. You might want to travel, buy a boat, or help your grandkids. Many people find their spending and their taxable income stays surprisingly flat in retirement. If you are earning $100,000 now and plan to live on $100,000 later, your tax bracket might not drop at all. In fact, it could go up. Let's run the numbers on something nasty called the Social Security Tax Torpedo. This is a hidden marginal tax that catches retirees off guard. Here is how it works. Social Security income is tax-free until you have other income. If you pull money out of a traditional 401k, that counts as income. As that income rises, it triggers taxation on your Social Security benefits. So, pulling $1 from your 401k might be taxed at 22%, but it also causes 85 cents of your Social Security to become taxable. This creates a phantom marginal tax rate that can spike over 40 or even 50% for middle-income retirees. You thought you were deferring taxes to a lower bracket, but you actually deferred them into a double taxation trap. This is why the lower bracket assumption is dangerous. Here is the protocol to avoid the torpedo. You need to estimate your fill the bucket strategy. The United States has a progressive tax system. The first chunk of money you pull out is tax-free, standard deduction. The next chunk is taxed at 10%, then 12%. If you have zero other income, a traditional 401k is amazing because you can fill up those cheap buckets, the standard deduction and the 10% bracket, with money you deducted at 24 or 32% years ago. That is an arbitrage win. The winning strategy is usually not all Roth or all traditional. It is having enough traditional money to fill the low tax buckets in retirement, and then having a Roth bucket to pull from for anything above that, to avoid spiking your rate or triggering the tax torpedo. We have talked about rates, but we haven't talked about time. And time has a funny way of distorting this decision. You might think, I'm 50, so I should do traditional because I'm retiring soon. Or, I'm 20, so I should do Roth. That is generally true, but not for the reasons you think. It isn't just about compound interest. It is about uncertainty. The longer your time horizon, the less you know about what the tax code will look like. Congress changes tax laws roughly every decade. If you are 25, you are betting on tax rates in the year 2065. Predicting that is impossible. So, let's look at how to hedge that uncertainty based on your age. If you are under 30, you are likely in the lowest earning years of your career. You might be in the 12% or 22% bracket. This is the sale of the century. Locking in a tax rate of 12% on your money is historically an incredible deal. But beyond the low rate, the Roth offers young people something else: massive tax-free compounding duration. If you put $10,000 in a Roth at age 25, it could grow to $150,000 by age 65. That is $140,000 of gain that is completely invisible to the IRS. Even if tax rates are low in the future, shielding that much growth is powerful. For the young and not yet rich, Roth is almost always the default winner. Now, let's look at the 45 or 50-year-old making good money. You are in your peak earning years. You might be in the 32 or 35% bracket, plus state taxes. You are getting hammered. In this scenario, the tax deduction from a traditional 401k is gold. If you contribute $23,000, you are instantly saving $7,000 or $8,000 in taxes. That is a guaranteed 35% return on your money immediately. It is very hard for a Roth to beat that guaranteed return unless you think tax rates in retirement will go to 50%. For high earners with a shorter runway, the traditional 401k is the best way to slice off the top layer of your income, the most heavily taxed layer, and save it for later when your income drops. The problem is the messy middle. What if you are 35, making decent money, in the 24% bracket? You aren't poor, but you aren't rich. You have 30 years to grow, but you are paying a decent chunk of tax today. This causes analysis paralysis. I see people sitting in cash because they can't decide. Here is the psychological hack: the split decision. There is no rule saying you have to pick one. You can put 50% of your contribution into traditional and 50% into Roth. This is a hedge. If taxes go up, your Roth wins. If taxes go down, your traditional wins. You are guaranteed to be half right. But more importantly, you eliminate the fear of being wrong, which allows you to keep investing aggressively. Action beats optimization every time. Most people stop the analysis at the math. They calculate the rates, pick a lane, and forget it. But there is a hidden feature of the Roth 401k that has nothing to do with percentages. It is about access. We assume everything will go to plan. We assume we won't touch this money until 60. But life happens. Layoffs happen. Health crises happen. If you have all your money in a traditional 401k, that money is in a concrete vault. You cannot touch it without paying taxes plus a 10% penalty. It is expensive money to access. Roth works differently, and understanding this liquidity premium changes the value of the account entirely. With a traditional 401k, the government holds the keys. Because the money hasn't been taxed yet, every withdrawal is a taxable event. This creates a lock-in effect. I have seen retirees who want to buy a new car for $30,000. They have the money in their traditional IRA. But to get $30,000 cash, they have to withdraw $40,000 to cover the taxes. That spikes their income, which increases their Medicare premiums. It is a cascading disaster. So they don't buy the car. They feel poor despite having money. They are paralyzed by the tax cost of accessing their own wealth. This is a miserable way to live your golden years. The Roth is your safety valve. While Roth 401k withdrawals are restricted while you are working, once you roll that money into a Roth IRA, the rules change. You can generally withdraw your original contributions, tax-free and penalty-free, at any time. But more importantly, In retirement, large withdrawals don't trigger income taxes. Need $50,000 for a roof repair? Pull it from the Roth. Taxable income reported? 0. Medicare premiums? Unchanged. Social Security Tax Torpedo? Disarmed. Having a healthy Roth balance gives you control over your taxable income. You can manipulate your income on paper to stay in lower brackets while spending big money. That flexibility is worth paying a premium for today. It is essentially insurance against future tax headaches. This leads us to the concept of tax diversification. In investing, you don't put all your money in one stock because you don't know which company will win. Why would you put all your retirement savings in one tax bucket? You don't know who will win, you or the IRS. The ideal retirement portfolio has 3 buckets. 1. Taxable brokerage for liquidity before 59.5. 2. Traditional pre-tax to fill the low brackets in retirement. 3. Roth for tax-free growth and large lump sum spending. If you approach retirement with only one bucket, you are at the mercy of the tax code at that moment. If you have all 3, you can choose which pocket to pay from every single year. It gives you options. There is one final group of people who need to ignore everything I just said about tax brackets. If your goal isn't just to spend your money, but to leave money to your children, the traditional 401k has recently become a ticking time bomb. It used to be that your kids could inherit your IRA and stretch the withdrawals over their entire lifetimes. That is gone. The Secure Act killed the stretch IRA. Now, your heirs have to drain the account within 10 years. If you leave a $1 million traditional IRA to your daughter, who is in her peak earning years, you are forcing her to add $100,000 of taxable income to her tax return every year for a decade. The IRS will absolutely crush that inheritance. Think about the timing. You die at 85. Your children are likely in their 50s. They are at the absolute peak of their careers. They are likely in their highest tax brackets ever. If you hand them a pre-tax asset, they have to pay income tax on it on top of their salary. They might lose 40 or 50% of your hard-earned money to federal and state taxes. It is an incredibly inefficient way to transfer wealth. You worked for 40 years to build that wealth, and in the final transfer, half of it evaporates. This is why estate planning isn't just for the ultra-rich. It is for anyone who wants their money to go to their family, not the Treasury. Roth accounts behave differently. Your heirs still have to empty the account within 10 years, but the withdrawals are tax-free. If you leave your daughter a $1 million Roth IRA, she can let it sit for 10 years, growing tax-free to potentially $2 million, and then withdraw the entire amount without paying a dime in tax. That is a massive difference in net value. If legacy is a priority, paying taxes now at your rate is almost always better than forcing your heirs to pay taxes later at their rate. You are essentially paying the toll for them so they can drive through the fast lane. It is a gift of tax efficiency. If you are already sitting on a massive traditional 401k and feeling stuck, don't worry. You have a move left. It is called the Roth conversion. In those early years of retirement, after you stop working but before Social Security and required minimum distributions kick in, you have a low-income valley. You can voluntarily move chunks of your traditional money to Roth and pay tax on it then. You fill up those lower brackets, 10%, 12%, 22%, converting as much as you can cheaply. This shrinks your traditional balance, reducing future RMDs and reducing the tax bomb for your heirs, while building up your Roth assets. It requires planning, but it is the single most effective way to clean up a messy tax situation before you die. We have covered a lot of ground, so let's simplify this into a final decision matrix you can use today. Question 1. Are you in the 12% or 22% tax bracket? If yes, go Roth. The tax cost is low and the upside is high. Question 2. Are you in the 32% bracket or higher? If yes, lean traditional, but only if you actually invest the tax savings. If you are going to spend the refund, just do Roth and force the savings. Question 3. Are you in the messy middle, around 24%? Split it, 50-50. Hedge your bets against legislative risk. And finally, if you have a long time horizon or want to leave money to heirs, tilt heavily toward Roth regardless of your bracket. The flexibility and legacy benefits outweigh the immediate math. I want to leave you with one thought. The government is a silent partner in your business. With a traditional 401k, you are giving that silent partner a voting share. You are letting them decide, 30 years from now, what percentage of profits they want to take. With a Roth 401k, you are buying them out. You are writing a check today to make them go away. Historically, tax rates right now are low. We have massive national debt and unfunded liabilities. It is not a conspiracy theory to suggest that taxes might go up in the future. Buying out your partner while the price is low is usually good business. Don't let the obsession with a small tax deduction today blind you to the freedom of a tax-free tomorrow. I want to hear your strategy. I know the Bogleheads forum fights about this daily, but I want to know what you are doing. Are you team pre-tax, betting on lower brackets? Or are you team Roth, locking in the certainty? Drop a comment below with your current split, like 100% Roth or 50-50. I read the comments to see where the sentiment is shifting. And if you found this framework useful, do me a favor and hit the like button so the algorithm knows to show this to more people who are sitting on a tax time bomb. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.